Okay, so let us begin. Over the past, 25 or so years, as we try to share different insights and understandings about various aspects of Krishna consciousness, one of the things that I've seen in our devotional communities is a lack of digestion. Okay, what do I mean by a lack of digestion? In the pursuit of health and well-being, we will have our meals, right? So we will have our breakfast, our lunch, our dinner. According to Ayurveda, illness is caused by lack of digestion. And Prabhupada actually states that in one place in a purport in the Bhagavad Gita, right? He talks about that the root cause of illness, according to Ayurveda, is lack of digestion. So issues with digestion then create other issues in the health. And as a global society, as a spiritual, devotional community, we have a similar issue. Our issue is a lack of digestion as regards to our teachings. What do I mean by that? As a devotional community, we often hear so much, but we digest so little of what we've actually heard. And it creates a problem. It creates various issues which we are often unaware of, and we often take in the wrong way. So when someone from the Ayurvedic point of view has the wrong lifestyle, when they, for example, they're eating their meals while they're watching television, while they're talking about something stressful that's happened in their life, their emotional states is affecting their digestion. And so the first thing is the digestion becomes compromised. But because the digestion has become compromised, their food is not assimilated properly. So what happens is, even though they're eating a meal, all the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, the proteins, the carbohydrates, all the things that they should receive from the meal is not being received within the body properly. And according to Ayurveda, that inability to properly digest, it produces a particular type of toxin. And the toxin is called AMA, okay? So that it produces a toxin, and those toxins then start to block the subtle channels in the body, leading not only to physical illnesses, but they also lead to mental illnesses. So depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, nervous tension, all of these different things, they all stem from this inability to properly digest what one has eaten. And that inability to properly digest also relates to an inability to properly digest one's experiences. Okay? So this is what happens from the physical digestion perspective. So what's the parallel for us as a spiritual community trying to be Krishna conscious? The parallel is as follows. As devotees, throughout our years in Krishna consciousness, we will hear so many classes. We may read so many different teachings about Krishna consciousness, but we may fail to properly digest what we have read and what we have heard. Okay? And this is a phenomena that I've seen literally throughout our devotional community, all around the world. We hear so much, we digest so little. And then what is the arm? What is the toxin? The toxin is that we start to have doubts as to whether Krishna consciousness works Because I've heard so many classes, I've read so many books, but it doesn't seem to be having a transformative effect upon me. Okay? I want us to dive into the psychology of this, what could be going wrong. Okay? And to begin with, we want to make a separation. We want to distinguish two different planes of Krishna consciousness. So there are actually three tiers or three levels of Krishna consciousness. And they are all meant to cooperate with each other. In fact, they are in many ways interdependent. The three tiers are Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So we have Sambandha, and Sambandha can have many different nuanced meanings to it. Here specifically, we will talk about Sambandha in terms of Sambandha Gyan, the philosophy, the teachings which elucidate the nature of devotional service and the nature of reality itself. Let's see. Yeah. Paravidya and Aparavidya. Paravidya is the spiritual knowledge of devotional service. Right? That's Paravidya. And the Aparavidya is the spiritual knowledge about how the material energy works. Both things are given in our teaching, okay? This is how the world works. This is how material nature works. Bhumiya punalavaya, kamana buddhyevacha ahankritiyami bina prakriti ishtada. But then also we have the Paravidya, the higher understanding, the higher knowledge, which is the direct teachings about Krishna, who Krishna is, the nature of the soul, Jivara Srupaya Krishnera Nitya Das, and the engagement or the connection between the two, between Krishna and the living entity, and that connection we know as Bhakti Yoga. So Sambandha, knowledge. Second tier, Abhideya. Abhideya means application. Third tier, Prayojana means goal, it means result, it means outcome. And it is the natural consequence of having proper understanding, proper application, which automatically leads to the proper result or the Prayojana. This is an eternal formula. And this eternal formula is expressed in different places within our teachings. It is actually implicitly woven into the teachings of Krishna consciousness. The crisis that we often experience as devotees in our communities is we have heard this Sambandha Gyan. We've heard this knowledge many times, many different sources in many ways. But we haven't, in hearing, we haven't digested this knowledge properly in order to really empower the Abhideya, which is the application. So it is like someone who has received from the doctor a prescription. These are the steps that you need to take. You take this medicine like this, you take this medicine like that, but we didn't understand the prescription properly. Therefore, when it came to application, when it came to taking the medicine, it was not taken in the way that was actually prescribed. We thought we did. Okay, this is where Maya gets really actually very tricky. I thought I understood the prescription. Therefore, I thought I was taking the medicine properly, but I wasn't. And because I'm not taking the medicine properly, therefore I don't achieve the outcomes in the way that I'm actually meant to. Now add to that another issue. See, I'm not taking the medicine properly, but I think that I am. So therefore, when I don't get results, there's two conclusions I can reach. The correct conclusion is that there's something wrong with my application. but that takes some humility. That's not the conclusion that most devotees reach. When they don't get results, they don't think that my application is wrong. They think that the philosophy does not work. Sambandha, abhideya, prayojana. Proper understanding, sambandha gyan, proper application, abhideya, leads to not only lasting results, but increasing results, consistent results, dynamic transformation. So, as a general rule, when we find that in spiritual life we're not progressing properly, we're not transforming in the way that we think that we should, it is incumbent upon us to do the analysis of application. Okay? When I find that something's not happening in spiritual life, when I find that I don't seem to make the progress that I think I should, we should question what is happening in terms of the application, my application of spiritual teachings. I'm going to read you something. This is from a literature called the Bhakti Sandarbha, written by Srila Jiva Goswami. And I'm going to read to you what he describes as 5 unfavorable effects of chanting. Okay? But this is not unfavorable effects of the correct chanting. These are unfavorable effects of incorrect chanting. Okay? I'm going to read them to you, and I just want you to think about whether you've experienced any of these. Okay, so these are 5 unfavorable effects resulting from incorrect chanting. Number 1, crookedness or performing devotional service to gain something other than Krishna's pleasure. Number 1. Number 2, faithlessness. Number 3, attachment to things that destroy faith in the Lord. Number 4, slackness in the performance of devotional practices. And number 5, interesting, the 5th result, the 5th unfavorable effect of chanting in the wrong way is pride in one's devotional advancement. Pride in an individual's own devotional advancement is an effect of incorrect chanting. Why am I reading this? We began the class by talking about this issue that we have with digestion. I'm going to link all of these together now. What happens in our devotional communities is we may hear so much, but reflect so little on what we're hearing. Okay? That's where the issue begins. Now, there are various results of that inability to reflect on what we're hearing. In the scriptures, it says, let's see, Shravana, hearing. Manana, reflection on what we're hearing. Nididhyasan, application of the process, proper application. And the last stage that's given in by one of our acharyas is vandanam, prayer. So we're meant to do all 4 stages. We're meant to hear. We're then meant to reflect on what we've heard. We're then meant to apply what we've heard based upon that reflection, that evaluation, that analysis. And we're also meant to pray for mercy. Why are all these 4 stages so essential? I was doing some analysis of the Bhagavatam, and I was hearing an amazing series of insights about the Bhagavatam and the effect of the Bhagavatam. There's a story in one of the Puranas about a very simple character who becomes a ghost, And then he, in order to be delivered, I believe it's his brother, is reciting this Bhagavad Gita. And this ghost eventually, through the hearing of the Bhagavad Gita, becomes liberated. That sinful individual who becomes liberated, his name is Dundukari. He hears Bhagavad Sapta. Over a prolonged period of time, he becomes liberated. He goes back to the Lord. Now, what's very interesting is that he's hearing as a ghost, but there are other people in the assembly who are also hearing that same Bhagavad Sapta, that same Bhagavad Gita. When Dundakari becomes liberated, he goes back to the Lord. And then the question is raised, hold on, why is he the only one going back? There are so many people in this assembly, everyone's hearing this Bhagavad Gita. Why is it that he's the only one who goes back? The answer that's given is yes, everyone heard this Bhagavad Gita. But Dundakari, every day when he heard the Bhagavad Gita, every day after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, he would do this manana. He would reflect upon what he'd heard. Whereas the other people, they didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that manana. They heard, they just went and they went about their business. Therefore, it was his way of hearing, that fullness of hearing, meant that he was liberated, whereas other people were not. Believe it or not, our teachings are the earliest, or one of the earliest recorded treatises on neuropsychology, neuroscience. What do I mean by this? What happens when you hear and then you reflect upon what you hear, you deepen the impression of what you've heard. So hearing is like you hear one voice, you hear an echo, you hear someone says something, you're in a cave, you hear one voice calls out, but then because you're in the cave, that one voice is echoed many, many times over. So someone calls your name, Prabhu. They say the name Prabhu once, but because it's in the cave, the name, that same one statement becomes reverberated. Prabhu, 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 Prabhu. So the first time you hear that Shravana, when you reflect, that is the echo of the voice that you heard. Manana. So you heard the class once, but you reflected on that same class. So the voice, the insights, the teachings, the realization, they then reverberate in your own consciousness, deepening that impression again and again and again and again, just like an echo repeats the same teaching again and again and again and again. One of the, to be honest, one of the most moving experiences that we've been having is just understanding how Krishna is so kind to us. And Krishna, he's constantly communicating with each and every one of us in our lives. He's constantly communicating to the entire world, and he's been doing so through the material energy. I think we explained this last week, that there are 10 topics in the Bhagavatam. Atrasaga visaga shta, stanam poshanam utaya, manvantar ishanukata, nirodo mukti ashraya. So in the second canto Bhagavatam, chapter 10, text number 1, this statement is there. And the Bhagavatam goes through all of these topics. But for example, Stanam, the structure of the universe, right? It's really all about understanding our position in the universe. And then at the same time, Saga Visaga, primary creation, secondary creation. The creation is explained many times throughout the Bhagavatam. Why? It is explained many times throughout the Bhagavatam to really bring to our attention, um, this statement that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate satcharacharam hetunane nikutaya. What's the last statement? Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate satcharacharam hetunane nikutaya jagat viparivartate. Right. Mayadhyakshena. Right. He's talking about how this entire cosmic creation, consisting of the moving and the non-moving, is under his superintendence. Everything is coming from him. And what does he do? He communicates even through his material energy. And the reason why the creation is explained so many times through the Bhagavatam is to cement within our minds the understanding that this energy, this energy of the material energy, Mama Maya Duratya, is Krishna's energy. The teachings explain that the material energy is Krishna's energy. And if you understand that it's Krishna's, a few magical things happen to us. First of all, if you know something belongs to someone else, it destroys your tendency to enjoy it because it's not yours. You know it's not yours. That's the first thing. The second thing is it cements a tendency for service because you know you're living on someone else's property. So you can't use it the way you want, but you should use it the way that they want because it's theirs. Right? But there's something even more amazing. When you understand that the energy is Krishna's, when you understand that the energy is coming from Krishna, when you understand that the energy is created from Krishna, then you can understand Krishna through his creation. This coronavirus was Krishna communicating through his energy to the entire world. And if you meditate on it, you will learn so many wonderful blessings, gifts, and communications that our Krishna has been giving us. I'll explain one of them, which relates to this. I was even listening to something on this recently, and it was even by a secular source, because I was just looking at some things around wellness, which we can bring into some seminars later on. And what they were talking about was how in this last 15 to 12 months, because we've not had the same ability to go out and about so much, it's forced everyone to be more reflective. Yeah? So what we've just been talking about, manana, it's forced everyone to be more reflective. There are some people who act but do not think. Okay? That's called the mode of passion. Yeah? There are some people who do not think and they do not act. Right? Look at it through the Shastra. Symptoms: not thinking and not acting. That is called the mode of ignorance. Okay? One of the opportunities that Krishna has given the entire world during the past 15 to 12 months is to press pause. Think. You can't run around so much. You can't be in the mode of passion so much. You can't just run around. He uses his material energy because the material energy is the classroom. This world is a living classroom. So he uses his material energy to put you in a particular position where we are forced to think. And because we're so used to acting and not thinking, when we have to think before acting, it invokes more of the mode of goodness. Now we know that devotional service in the mode of goodness is the fastest way to become perfected. In the 11th canto Bhagavatam, it talks about different modes of devotional service. You can do devotional service in ignorance. You can do devotional service in passion. You can do devotional service in goodness, or you can be fully pure. Okay? Now, as sadhakas, people who are practicing to become pure, the highest level of devotional service in practice is to practice devotional service from the mode of goodness. So back to this point about this armor. Because we as devotees hear so much philosophy, but do not think, do not reflect upon what we've heard, we come into this space where, due to a lack of reflection, our application becomes a bit potentially compromised. We don't apply it so deeply because we've not been thoughtful about how we're applying. In other words, many of us as devotees throughout our communities, we do our devotional service in the mode of passion or ignorance. It's an activity with very little thought. I think back to so many conversations I had with my spiritual master. I think back to so many conversations I had with my spiritual master. And actually, I feel year after year increasing gratitude. Why? What happens in spiritual life, if we do it properly, and if we get the mercy of good association, things that we heard before, which we thought we understood, as we mature and as we become more thoughtful, again, manana, we reflect, we become a bit more reflective, we become a bit more in the mode of goodness. As we look back on things that we heard, we see them very differently. And then we think, oh my God, I understand now. I was told this 20 years ago, and I thought I understood what I was being told, but I didn't understand what I was being told. Later on, I look back and I reflect back in light of a deeper insight, and I think, oh, now I understand what I was being told. So, I remember my spiritual master saying that in ISKCON, we're often firefighting. He said we're often putting out fires in our movement. So what does he mean by that? It means unfortunately, we're still like this, but I really want us to change. And I want you to listen carefully to what I'm saying. If you're able to understand what I'm telling you, it will change your spiritual life forever. It will change your chanting forever. And it will immediately boost the quality of everything that you do in Krishna consciousness. Okay, please listen carefully. So, he was explaining, and I heard him explain it more than once. He said, in ISKCON, we're often putting out fires. Right? Now, what does it mean to put out a fire? It means that you engage in devotional service in the mode of passion. So, there isn't really any thought. There isn't really any planning. There isn't really any strategy to our spiritual life. It's just I go through the motions. Often I go through the motions mechanically, and I'm hoping that one day by some miracle, I'm going to become Krishna conscious. And he was explaining how this mentality is expressed in our devotional communities and how it's expressed in our institution. And I'll be honest, what I'm sharing with you is so exciting. It's a negative thing I'm explaining, but it's so exciting because the moment you're aware of something, you can move beyond this. It's very easy to move beyond this trap of Maya. So he said in our institutions, what happens is we engage in devotional service not so thoughtfully, and then an emergency happens. That emergency is like a fire. So we then, everyone, oh, there's a fire, and then everyone runs to put out the fire, okay? And then we carry on as if, oh, okay, we're a success, right? High five, everyone, right? You pat yourself on the back. We're a success. We put out the fire. And then we make the biggest mistake. We go back to how we were again, devotional service, just running around. And then there's another fire. Then we think, oh, there's another fire. Everyone's got to get together. We've got to put out this fire. And we put out another fire. And this pattern repeats itself. That devotional service in the mode of passion is this firefighting. You just constantly deal with emergencies. It is also reminiscent of material life. It's even reminiscent of material medicine. What is material medicine? You just enjoy yourself, eat what you like, drink how you want, live how you want. And then when you get ill, what do? We'll just put you in hospital, give you some pills, give you an injection to so-called fix the problem. Then you can go back to enjoying again. So it's superficial. It's the mode of passion. Now, I did an analysis. I've done various analyses of devotees. And also I tried to understand, but my Guru Maharaj was saying this. So why was he so he's saying this, and that implied he wasn't living this way, and he wasn't. And then I wanted to understand, okay, what's he doing differently? Okay, devotional service in the mode of passion, firefighting, just dealing with one crisis after another crisis after another crisis. Yes, when he told me, I looked around and I saw, yes, I saw the patterns. I saw one devotee sleepwalking in devotional service, doesn't really understand what they're doing, doesn't have a deep understanding, but just going through the motions mechanically. Yeah. So what was my spiritual master and other spiritual masters who were advanced and other devotees who were advanced, what were they doing differently? What was the alternative? Again, the alternative was this manana. So what they were doing differently, and I saw this with my spiritual master, and he talked about it. He talked about this, and this is an activity we're all going to do on this call. He spoke about the power of devotees taking inventory. So mode of goodness, we said, is characterized by reflection, then activity. So think, then act. So in terms of my role in my day-to-day life, I train leaders. And I honestly, I can understand that this role that I have, it was Krishna's mercy. It was Krishna's mercy. He put me in the situation. I had so much Vedic understanding about how to train leaders. And in this role, he showed me a few things. He showed me that what we've given you in the scripture is far superior to everything that's out there in the world. Point number one. Point number two, he showed me that actually, even though it's far superior to everything that's put out there in the world, these people can take something very small and package it brilliantly. And we have something incredible, and we have absolutely no idea how to package it. He showed me that in Kali Yuga, image is everything. So if you have the higher knowledge and you don't know how to present it, people won't even look at what you have to offer. Because unless it's well presented, it doesn't even blip on the radar for most people. They can't see it. Because in Kali Yuga, everyone is at best in passion and often in ignorance. So passion creates a superficial mentality whereby even if you've got the highest truth, if you do not present it in the proper way, no one will be able to recognize it. You understand? He showed me even more. He showed me that actually so many things that work in the outside world, they work if and only if they are in line with scripture. So there was an article, and we presented this to the managers and the leaders. And the article was called Beware the Busy Manager. Right? Think about this carefully. Beware the busy manager. They did an analysis. They did an analysis of the top managers to find out what is it that these managers who are the best managers, what do they do differently from all the other managers? And one of the top qualities of these high-performing managers, which allowed them to be more successful than all the other managers, was that the top quality managers, they would regularly, in their schedule, carve out time to think and to reflect. Manana, again, the same thing. And they explained that by doing that, those people who were regularly thoughtful, reflective, were able to step back and think, how are things going? What's going well? What's not going well? Where do we need to go in the future? Because they were able to be thoughtful, before they did activity, over time, their success became exponentially stronger. You see? So they didn't say this in the article, but when I looked at it, I then examined it through Shastra Chakshus, that quality of thought before activity. What mode was that in? I explored it according to scripture, very clear. It meant that they were bringing more of the mode of goodness to their leadership. Now, what does this mean for us? It means that you and I, we are leading our own life. It means that you and I, we are leading our practice of Krishna consciousness. You and I, we are leading our practice and hopefully our path of improving our chanting. So if we do not, as devotees, have regular periods of reflection and activity, what we do is we bring ourselves down to the lower modes, ignorance and passion. And then, and what happens when you have that as a community? You have a community, like my spiritual master said, who are constantly firefighting, which is another way of saying you have a community of practitioners of bhakti who are always in the mode of passion. And then they wonder why they're not progressing in the way that they think that they should. So that's what my spiritual master said. So what did he do differently? I saw him. I observed him many times. He was incredibly active as a devotee, incredibly active in Krishna consciousness. But it wasn't that he was just active, running around. It wasn't mode of passion activity. Right? He would be very thoughtful about the classes he gave. He'd be very thoughtful about his own practice of Krishna consciousness. He'd be very thoughtful to learn, to reflect on what he learned, and to apply that understanding for himself and for other people. So you and I, ladies and gentlemen, we have an ability to excel. I really mean this. We have an ability to excel in our spiritual life in ways that you cannot even imagine. Over the last few years, I've been trying to apply this understanding. And when the lockdown happened, Krishna gave me an extended period to be even more thoughtful in my application of Krishna consciousness. And it's just been such an exciting journey. I'm buzzing all the time. It's been such an incredibly exciting journey. And because I've been trying to do this, it gives a sensitivity. You then start to see the devotees and you can see what's going on. Oh, I get it now. I see why they have this issue. Because if we engage in devotional service in the modes of passion and ignorance, you're actually less conscious. I did an exercise with some devotees. I've done this a few times where we got them to do a reflective activity. And what they were doing is they were looking at different areas of their life: finances, health, career, sadhana, relationships. We got them to look at each area of their life and to rate which mode is that area in. Okay, so to give an example, some devotees have their finances in the mode of ignorance. They have absolutely no idea how much money is coming in. They have absolutely no idea how much money is going out. They don't know how much their living costs are. They're just completely unaware. So at any time, some crisis can come up because, you know, they may buy something that takes them into debt. They're not aware, right? So lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, no awareness whatsoever, ignorance. Some devotees, they're in the mode of passion with their finances. They waste their money, you know, impulse buying. Just buy something, just because of initial attraction, impulse. You know, just trying to enjoy, no sense of saving, no sense of thinking about the long term. Passion. Then you have devotees who have their finances in the mode of goodness. They know how much it costs to maintain their lifestyle. They know what their running costs are. Okay, they know how much there is coming into their bank account on a regular basis. They know what they can actually save, and they have a regular saving program, right? They're conscious of what's coming in. They're conscious of what's going out. They're conscious of what they need to save for their future. They're conscious of when they want to retire, and they're working towards that state. So they know, okay, we've got this much coming in, right? This is how much it costs me to live, to maintain myself in a healthy way, right? This is how much I can invest or save, right? And this is how much I should save on a regular basis so that when I reach this particular age, I can retire, I can go to Vrindavan, whatever I want to do. They're conscious. So my spiritual master was helping me to understand we want to practice Krishna consciousness in the mode of goodness, because by practicing Krishna consciousness in the mode of goodness, you can quickly become transcendental, right? And what that means practically, one of the things it means practically, is that in our day-to-day spiritual life, we should be reflective. So Shravana, we should hear, but Manana, we should also reflect upon what we hear. And when you hear and reflect, it improves the quality of your what? Of your nididhyasana. It improves your ability to properly apply the teaching. It also helps you to understand what you don't know, and it improves your ability to inquire, to fill the gaps. You see? This is how we're meant to practice spiritual life. Now, what does all of this mean for our chanting? We're going to do an activity which I think you may find quite insightful. And to do this activity, I'm going to demonstrate the activity myself with one of you so that everyone on the call can see the activity. And then I'm going to ask you to do the activity yourselves. And then we're going to go from there, okay? So I'm just going to have a look, first of all, to see who is here. And I'm going to then engage in this activity. And I want you all to pay attention to what we're doing, because this is very, very, very important. And it's also a principle that can be applied in practically all areas of your life. So I'm going to see if Darshak, if you are on the line and if you're available. If you are, can you switch your camera on? Is that okay? Okay, Haribo Darshak. Are you, and again, if you can't, then that's okay, but are you available to do that for the next 5 minutes?
Yeah, of course, Prabhu. I'm outside right now. Is that okay?
It's okay, but we're gonna do a dialogue together. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Okay, I want everyone to watch what we're gonna do. Okay, so for this activity, you can see Darshak on the screen, and you can see myself, Bhuta Bhavana. Okay, now, what I wanna do is I'm gonna just check. I'm gonna ask Naimishwaranya. Naimishwaranya, am I a co-host at the moment? Yes? Okay, okay, so everyone, I want you to watch what I'm gonna do. Now, as a co-host, I can change people's names on the call. You see Darshak's name, I'm gonna change his name, and I'm gonna put his name as, and you'll see this show up in a minute. What name has Darshak got now? What's his name? Anyone can unmute and tell me.
Bhuta Bhavana Das.
Okay, so for the exercise, this person that you can see, not me, but the other person, his name is Bhuta Bhavana Das, okay? Now, I'm going to change my name, okay? So watch what I'm doing as well. Watch what I'm doing, because this will help us to understand this activity. Okay, I'm going to take on this role. What role am I taking on? Okay, Super Soul. Okay, so watch what's going to happen, and it's really important to watch this carefully. This is going to be very, very insightful for all of us, okay? And it links again to this idea of manana, which helps to bring our service and our life more to the mode of goodness, which is characterized by thought, activity, thought, activity. So an approach in goodness. So Darshak, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Okay, so Darshak, for this exercise, you're going to play the role of Bhuta Bhavana, and I am going to play the role of the Super Soul. So Darshak, you, from this point, you're BBD. So I'm going to ask you to ask me a particular question, okay? So what you're going to say, as Bhuta Bhavana, you're going to address the Super Soul, okay? And you're going to say, Super Soul, please tell me what I, Bhuta Bhavana, can do. Oh, actually, no, we'll frame the question slightly differently. So what you're going to ask me as the Super Soul, okay, and you as Bhuta Bhavana, you're going to say, Dear Super Soul, please tell me about my chanting. What am I doing well in my chanting? And what do I need to do to really improve and take my chanting forward? Okay, so we're going to test drive that now. So, Bhuta Bhavana, over to you.
Dear Super Soul, please tell me about my chanting. What am I doing well with my chanting? And how can I improve in my chanting?
Okay, so now, Super Soul, myself, Super Soul, I'm going to speak to Bhuta Bhavana. So, Bhuta Bhavana, since the temple in London changed its opening hours and started opening up in the morning, I've noticed that you've gone to morning program and you're chanting your rounds with the devotees. This is really, really good. And as a result, because now you're looking after your health a bit better, so when you wake up, you're more energized, so you've got more energy in your mind. I've noticed that your chanting is improving and you're developing that deeper connection to the chanting. That's very good. I want you to make sure that you maintain this Bhuta Bhavana, okay? But do it in such a way that you have enough good rest before you go to that morning program. So try to get 7 hours, because sometimes when you get 6 hours, you are a bit tired. And the last few times you found that you're a bit tired in the daytime, okay? So try to make sure you sleep 7 hours and then wake up, and then you can go for morning program at the temple. What I'd like you to also do, Bhuta Bhavana, and I think you've noticed this, you've noticed that when you're chanting with your eyes closed, which is a technique that Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises, that you wear a blindfold or you close your eyes, you've noticed that your chanting is better because you're not so distracted by the environment. I want you to practice that as much as possible. It's really helping you. And what I want you to also do, Bhuta Bhavana, is I want you to also write to me. Write to me as the holy name on a regular basis, and just when you write to me on a regular basis, tell me how your chanting is doing. I want you more and more to relate to me as a real transcendental person, and that will deepen the connection. So if you do these things along with the regular prayers to the holy name and reading about the holy name, then you will develop deeper and deeper taste for chanting Bhuta Bhavana. So this is what I want you to work on, okay? And well done for coming for the morning program. That sleeping early and waking early is really important for you. It particularly helps you in your spiritual life in general and in your chanting in particular. So well done. Keep up the great work, and these are some additional ideas that will really help you. Okay, so thank you for that, Darshak. You can mute.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. I'm going to put your name back to Darshak. Okay, so bear me. Well, actually, I'm not going to. Maybe we can do that later on. But I want to emphasize the activity that you just saw. Okay, so you will take on the role of the Super Soul. Someone else will take on your personality. Okay, and then as you saw, the person that you're partnered with, they're going to pretend to be you, and they're asking the Super Soul. So, for example, if I was doing this with Naimishwaranya, I would be Naimishwaranya. Naimishwaranya would be the Super Soul. So Naimishwaranya, would say, Dear Super Soul, please tell me what I, Naimishwaranya, am doing well in my chanting, and what I need to do differently in order to improve my chanting. You see, and in that way, Super Soul, who's on the screen as Naimishwaranya, would say to Naimishwaranya, I've noticed that you do this well, you do this well, you do this well. I've seen that this is an area of challenge for you. You need to do this differently. Okay? And then you would swap. So like with me and Darshak, after we've done one way, which you just saw, we would swap over. So now I would, instead of being the Super Soul, I would become, and I'll just write this in, I'll become Darshak. And Darshak would become, and we're going to do this because I want to make sure it's very, very clear. And Darshak would become Super Soul. Okay. And then what would happen is, in Darshak, I'm going to ask you to unmute for this. I want you to watch carefully what I'm doing. So then I, Darshak, I'm going to ask the Super Soul, dear Super Soul, so please tell me, tell me about my chanting. I want to gain insight on my chanting. What about my chanting am I doing well? And what do I need to do differently in order to improve my chanting? Super Soul, over to you.
I've noticed, Ashak, that you wake up early to do your chanting. That's really good. And you're chanting with your eyes closed and not getting distracted. But I've noticed that you could get the 7 hours of sleep. So I'd advise you to go sleep earlier.
Okay. Is there anything else? Is there anything else, dear Super Soul, that you feel that I, Darshak, can be doing? So I've noticed what you're saying. So I should sleep earlier and get 7 hours. What else could I, Darshak, be doing to really improve my chanting? Because you know how my chanting really is. What else can I be doing?
So while chanting, I've also noticed deeply meditate on the Lord while chanting, fully block out everything else and hone in on the holy name. So just close your eyes, be present, and keep surrendering.
Thank you very much, Super Soul, for your guidance. Okay, I'm good. Darshak, if you can mute. Okay, so let me explain why we're going to do this activity and how it links to everything we've said so far. What we're doing in this activity is another form of manana. What we're doing in this activity is tapping into that deeper insight and that personalized insight. Because we can give class and say so many things, but to be honest, every single one of us, we know what our japa is really like. We know where we are strong. We know where there are some weaknesses. And with this activity, which we'll do in pairs in a moment, we're going to really tap into that insight. So when you're getting that insight, also I'm going to ask you to write it down after you've done the activity. So once you've done it one way, pause. Write down the activity. Write down the insights that you gain. Then you'll swap over like you saw us do. And then after you've done it the other way, then pause. Write down the activity and then talk about what came for you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do that. I'm going to get you into pairs and you're going to breakout rooms. Okay. So what we're going to do for the breakout rooms is, I'm going to get you into breakout rooms in a moment in pairs. We have about 37 people in the breakout room. And then what we'll do, so let's just make about just under 20 different breakout rooms. Let's assign that automatically. So in a moment, you'll see an invitation to get it into the breakout room. Okay, so I saw Diksha Ahuja. You want to be with Simran. What I will do, Diksha, is I'm going to put the setting such that you can move into a different room. Okay, I'm gonna make it the setting so that we're going to start the breakout room. I've paired you up, but if you want to switch your pair, you can go into a different room, right? So there's a bit of room to negotiate with people and say, you know what, that's my friend. Would you mind if I did the exercise with her? And you can go into the other room with someone else. Because we ain't gonna get into that stuff, right? You can go who you like. But the main thing is that you do the exercise, you do it sincerely, and you try and tap into that understanding. Okay, is that clear first of all? Okay, that's the main thing about the exercise. We want you to do it sincerely, try to tap into that understanding. And then once you've done it one way, I stress, stop and pause and write down what came to you. Okay, and then switch. And that means the other person takes on the role of the super soul, the other person is you, etc. And then you do it again, and then you pause and you write down your realizations. And then after you've done that, we will come back into the main room. I'm going to give you about 15 minutes, which means you have about 7 minutes each way, and between, well, let's say 6-7 minutes each way, and you have some time to pause and write down your notes. And then you can actually, after you've both done that, and after you've both written down your notes, then you can talk with each other about how the experience felt to you and what stood out for you during this activity. Okay, now I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask, are there any questions about the activity so I can clarify before we start? If there's any questions, please raise your hands, unmute and ask now. If you have any questions. Okay, so I'm going to take it that everyone understands the activity. As I said before, we'll start the breakout activity. You can go into another room, but you have to negotiate because I've put you in pairs. If you want to be with someone else, you can go into another room, but then you have to say to the person, all right, so I'm in room number 4. Would you mind swapping with me? That kind of thing, okay? And then I will bring you all back here into the main room in about 15 to 20 minutes time. Now, we have about 32 people on the call. Oh, that's actually quite good. I'm going to recreate the rooms because I think a few people have dropped or moved out. So just bear with us 1 second. Okay, so we've got everyone in pairs. If you find that for some reason a person has dropped out of your room and you're alone, obviously feel free to go into a different room. And if worse comes to worse and you're in a group of 3, that's fine, okay? The main thing is that you give each other time to do the activity. Is that clear? And you may have 1 or 2 rooms of 3 just because of the uneven numbers. Is that clear? Okay, so you'll see the breakout rooms will come to you now. You'll see opportunity, you'll see an invite, go into the room and I'll bring you back in about 15 to 20 minutes. Please do this properly. Please make your notes and we'll bring you back in about 15 to 20 minutes from now. Okay, so I'm bringing everyone back into the main room. I think all the rooms will close in about 30 seconds or so. Let's see. Okay, so I think everyone is back into the main room. So you did this activity. The activity was to, we started the whole session by talking about the modes. We also talked about devotional service in different modes. We spoke about the quality of reflectivity and how we bring that forward and how in many cases we confuse the philosophy with the quality of our application of the philosophy. So I'm just going to pause because I know we've done the activity and I just want to hear from anyone who's happy to speak. How did you find that exercise? How did you find that exercise? We'd like to hear from 1 or 2 people. Anyone who'd like to speak?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, the exercise was quite very, very exciting. Very good class. Very good exercise we did. I did with Prabhu Maurice. It's nice. Yes, we exchange our good and what we miss or what we are missing, how we are going to improve ourselves in devotional service. We discuss. Okay, very good, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sodesh. Thank you. Let's hear from 1 or 2 more people. Anyone else? When you did this activity, how did it feel? And any insights, anything that you learned about yourself in relation to the chanting? When you put yourself in that position, you tried to connect with the super soul to give you advice on your own spiritual practice. Anyone else like to share any reflections? Yes, Krishangi, please.
Yes, I'm very happy for doing this exercise, and I connected with somebody. Okay, I forgot his first name, but anyway, she's younger than me, but I feel that she told me everything that I needed to hear. especially about improving my japa, that I should chant the whole mantra in one beat and then move to the next beat. And also about developing attachment. Because I was saying that how can I develop attachment for the holy name, you know? And so she advised me to, the Super Soul advised me to read about Krishna. If we want to develop attachment for somebody, we have to learn about him, hear about him, you know, and so that, and then when we chant, our chanting can be better. So that was very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Krishangi. Thank you. And I'm going to go to Diksha. I'm going to go to Diksha and ask Diksha, any thoughts? How did you find the activity?
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much, Roger. Please accept my humble obeisances. It was very nice. Actually, few things I was going through from so many days, and actually I could emphasize on them and say to myself, I have to do it. So when I acted as a super soul for the other person, so actually I was saying things which I wanted in my life for improving my japa, to be focused in my japa, how to work on my life, how to reflect more. So it was very emphasizing. Now I think if I have said to myself in the assembly of 3 people, so definitely there is much more strength to follow it. So this is how I find it useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Diksha. So the whole idea of this exercise, let's be very clear, is an exercise in tapping into your own capacity for introspection. So we began by making this point, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasan, Vandana, that it's not just a question of hearing blindly and then forgetting about it and everything just goes on as it was before, but rather what we're trying to do in spiritual life, especially, is to practice spiritual life in the mode of goodness. And one of the key components is to engage in spiritual life in a way that's thoughtful, right? So where am I now in my spiritual life? How is my japa going? What can I be working on to improve? And having that awareness. When we live our lives too much in passion, we're so busy putting out fires, pulling out one emergency after another emergency after another emergency in our own lives that we don't think. And then you'll find, and I think many of us have experienced this, you turn around, 1 year's gone, you turn around 5 years ago, you've turned around 10 years ago, you don't even know where the time's gone. And we haven't really utilized the human form of life and human energy to progress in the way that we could have, you see? So we want to encourage you to make this a component of your life. Engage in spiritual life thoughtfully. So yes, we should be active, definitely, but we should also be thoughtful about what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, where we're putting our time and energy, and how we can maximize our use of time and energy that we make the most spiritual advancement. Your spiritual advancement is not only a gift to you, but your spiritual advancement is also a gift to the entire planet. We need more pure devotees, and we should be very clear. Every single one on this call, every single one of us, by the grace of Guru, the grace of Krishna, we can become pure in this lifetime. Okay? We just have to take full advantage of the human form of life and full advantage of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And that really has a lot to do with understanding, especially our chanting, how it's going, be reflective about it, be honest about it, and think, you know what, this is what I'm doing that's good. And these are distinct things that I can do, right? Because you can hear classes and seminars and they'll give some overall ideas, but then it comes down to what's going to be most significant for you. And this is why we took this approach. So you're reflecting on your own japa, your own current state, and your own options, and which of those options which are going to work for you right now are the ones for you to take forward in order to progress in your chanting. Okay, so I hope that was useful and helpful. And I'm going to pause and just open up for any questions or comments before we close.
Hare Krishna. So we thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this very deep and instructive session. And the activity was very nice for everyone. Now we'd like devotees to come forward and ask any questions, query, or comments if they want. and they can raise their virtual hands, and we'll call upon their names one by one.
Yeah, there's any
Also,
questions?
devotees on Facebook, they can send their questions. We can read them for you. I see Mataji Diksha Ahuja has a question. Mataji, you may unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question is that sometimes, many times we, as a practicing sadhaka, we see plans, hands of Krishna in our life.
Mm-hmm.
But even though we are seeing, even though we are feeling it, but sometimes we're not able to act upon it out
Mm-hmm.
of lack of determination sometimes, and out of maybe casualness. But we are seeing that Krishna is telling me to do things in my life, but the life routine is such that I'm not able to do it. The boredom is so much, or the passionate nature is so much that I'm not able to follow it. So
Mm-hmm.
how can we develop that determination to follow the things Krishna is telling in our life? So
Okay,
that is what I'm facing.
Okay, that's a very good question. There are two things that we should be conscious of. The first one is that in order to move forward, we need good association. Good association will help us to have the determination to be accountable and to follow through. So the universal formula, first of all, is good association, which encourages us. So you're no longer doing it by your own determination alone, but your determination, however much it is, plus the encouragement of others and the accountability to others. That makes someone able to achieve far more than their own individual determination will allow. That's point number one. Point number two is that in order to transform, we should, rather than look at the big transformation and the big change, we should think, okay, this is a big change. What's a small part of this bigger change that I'm happy to start with? So rather than trying to make that complete change, which requires a lot of determination, break it down into small pieces. So for example, if I want to wake up earlier, because I know that I wake up late and I'm tired and I lose a lot of time, then rather than saying from tomorrow, I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m., right? Let's say you're used to waking up at 8 o'clock. Then you may say, okay, so for tomorrow, rather than waking up at 8 a.m., I'm going to try and go half an hour earlier. I know I want to start waking up at 4 a.m. Okay, but it's a big shift. So the first step is, instead of waking up at 8 a.m., I'm going to try and wake up at 7:30 a.m. So just half an hour less, okay? Rather than making it one huge shift, which requires lots of determination, I break it down into small steps, and you can make it as small as you need to in order for it to be something that you can actually do. And every time you achieve that small step, you feel even more confidence and determination to do slightly more next time. That's actually how you build your determination. It's built by small incremental improvements over time. Okay, so if you try that approach, and again, in good association, your determination plus the encouragement of others and the accountability will carry you much further than just your own determination. And when you want to change something, don't try to make a huge change. You can break it down to small incremental steps, and you can make it as small as you need to in order for it to be something I can definitely do this. And then over time, that step will build and build and build, and you'll eventually get to your long-term goal. Okay. Thank you, Diksha. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, we have a question from Sudesh Prabhu. Prabhuji, you may unmute and ask your question.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Most of the devotees are shift workers. So let's say they're working during the night. It's where it's sometimes not possible for them to do the sadhana during Brahma Muhurta. So is it allowed to start chanting just after midnight?
Ah, good question. My honest answer is I'm not sure. See, from the Vedic point of view, the day begins with sunrise. Right? The day begins with sunrise. So what you would actually say, or actually not even sunrise, because Brahma Muhurta is before sunrise, and that's still considered a day. So if you have a guru, I would suggest that you specifically find out from him what he would actually say. Because my suspicion is that different authorities would prefer or would state different things. So you would find out from your particular spiritual master. And to be honest, I think that's the right answer, because also I don't want to give an answer on a general forum like this, because everyone's circumstances are different. See, Krishna's he's very personal. He will take into account that someone is doing shift work, right? But if someone else is saying, okay, I'm going to chant just after midnight, but they're not doing shift work, he'll take it very, very differently. So it would be bad of me to give a general answer that doesn't apply equally to everyone. So I would say ask your own particular guru, mentor, and find out from them, because they will give an answer which is specific to your circumstances, and then Krishna will accept that. But that said, the general rule is you will do it upon the waking of the new day. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Mataji Simran Kansal, you may unmute and ask your question.
We can't hear you, Simran.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're a little bit faint. Can you maybe speak a little bit louder, or is there any way you can increase the volume? Slightly. Is your headset got the microphone with it? Is the microphone on your headset? Oh, okay. It was better now. It was a bit clearer. So yeah, please carry on. Please ask your question.
My question was, I attended a class by Sudha Prabhu, and he was talking about the importance of reading the Bhagavatam and reflecting on the mood that a particular section is portraying and bringing that into our japa. So when I read or hear sections, I feel as though I can bring that mood in for a few days, and then I feel as though that mood is enough to sustain me for like the rest of my chanting days. But then after a while, it fades away. And what can we do to retain that mood whilst we're chanting?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. What can we do to retain that particular mood when we're chanting, based on what we said? So the mind, I was listening to something earlier today. Actually, it was there was the Bhaktivedanta Manor. They were doing this online event for Srila Prabhupada, and so Kripamoy was talking, and one of the things he mentioned was about the morning, the prayers Om Jnana Timirandasya, and the mood that they're meant to invoke. And he was saying that when you do them, and it's not mechanical, then that's very, very beneficial. He said that the mind is so chanchala, it's flickering, that after a while it may become mechanical, in which case you may then choose a different set of prayers, which you can then state without it becoming kind of automatic or mechanical. So what I would suggest, is that you can try chanting with a certain mood. And if after a while that's no longer working in the way that it was initially because of the mind's flickering nature, there's nothing wrong in trying a different mood of chanting, because there are actually many, many different moods. The point is actually that you're trying to make a real connection with the holy name, and that's the goal. That holy name is non different from Krishna. So our goal is to be deeply connected to Krishna, to deeply call out to Krishna with real feeling. So I would say try one mood. If you find that after a while it's not working, then you can go to a different mood, because there are so many different moods in the scriptures. As long as your connection is there, you're getting purified. And as you get purified, the mind becomes easier to control. And then you'll find that whichever mood you connect with, you'll have the ability to hold that mood for a longer period of time. Does that make some sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay.
Yes, we have a question from His Grace Jananda Prabhu. Prabhuji, you may unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Obeisances of glory to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So the question is, when we are practicing devotional service, especially in the mode of passion, we hear a lot and we read a lot, but finally we digest almost nothing from what we have heard, nor what we have read. And then we start to sometimes we get a jolt, then we start to reflect on how to rectify our situation. But the remedy, it goes on, it's like a short-lived. We can try it for some time and then later on we return back to our normal business. So how we can make it consistent, that we can practice it consistently?
There's a few things we should be aware of. First of all, any new habit takes time. So the beginning effects will be quite small or incremental in most cases. So that should not cause us to lose determination. We should understand, even though I don't feel so much changes there, if I keep doing it, it will change. So there was, I read something when I was very young, and it was about how they trained ninjas. So these ninjas are like very, very powerful martial artists. So in the school, for training, they would get the young boy to plant a seed in the ground, and then he would have to jump over that seed many times every day. So the next day he'd water the seed and then jump over that seed many times the next day. Then the next day he'd water the seed. So the seed would grow into a plant, and every day it would grow. It'll be so tiny, so incremental that you could hardly tell how much it's grown. But every day it would grow a tiny amount, but they jump over that plant every day many, many times. Because it grew only a tiny amount every day, they would always feel it's easy to jump over, right? Because the growth is so tiny. It's like, yeah, this is easy. Over time, it would grow so high, but they could still jump over it because of the practice. So when we try to perform a change in habits, the growth will be tiny in most cases, but we should keep doing it. That's the first point. We should keep doing it because it is actually growing. And second, as we do that, you'll find that you're able to retain more of the benefit, because the benefit, it has two levels. On an unconscious level, it's always purifying whether you remember or don't remember. Okay? There was a class many years ago in London. And it was a very good analogy that was given by one devotee. And they asked, so the story was told, there was a couple, a married couple. And actually, no, the question was, we read, but I don't remember anything that I read. Okay? And so what was pointed out, that this was a gentleman who asked the question. So he was married and they asked the gentleman, okay, so is this your wife? He said, yes. And they said, does she cook for you every day? And he said, yes, she cooks for me every day. And they said, do you, when you eat the cooking, when you honor the prasadam, do you feel nourishment from the food? He said, yes, whenever I have the meal, I feel full, I feel nourished. And they said, okay, but do you remember every single meal that she's cooked? He said, no, I don't remember every single meal. He said, does that mean that you're not being nourished? No, you're being nourished. So the point about the Bhagavatam and about our teachings, you may not consciously remember every single teaching. It does not mean that you did not get some spiritual nourishment from the process of hearing. That's the first point. So it's always working. But when we do, and so for example, even devotional service in ignorance is better than no devotional service. Devotional service in passion is better than devotional service in ignorance. But devotional service in goodness is better than devotional service in passion and ignorance. So there's always benefit. What we're saying in this class, if you do this full process, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasan, Bandhanam, you will progress faster. And it will be more profound. Because what do I mean by more profound? If you also are consciously aware of the teachings, Not only is it that you're purified, but because you're consciously aware, you're better positioned to teach others. So you get benefit from your own purification, and you get benefit because you're sharing it with other people as well, other non-devotees and devotees as well. So it's a faster way of accelerating. Yeah. So everything you do makes a difference, but it will build upon itself. So even if you don't feel you're getting very much or you forget, keep going. It will build on itself. When you go to do exercise, you do exercise first day, your muscles don't change in a major way that you can see. It's not like that. It's the day by day by day practice that builds incremental improvement. Then after a year, you look and think, wow, my body is different. That's how it works.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. And I have a second question. When you refer to the mood of chanting, if you could elaborate a bit on the mood of chanting, because the title was Mood and Methodology and the means of chanting. So on the mood of chanting, what do you especially want to convey when you say the mood of chanting?
There's different moods in chanting. The mood means the feeling and the mentality behind the chanting. And as was said earlier, there are many. There's one that I was going to share with you. And I think that because you've asked me, I'll take it that Krishna wants me to share this. I had this realization many years ago, which was really, really exciting. So what I understood was that, see, Prabhupada, there's one particular emphasis that he's often giving in terms of the mood of chanting. He says one should chant the holy names of the Lord like a child calling for their mother, like a lost child calling for their mother, right? He often would emphasize this. So years ago, I was meditating on that statement by Prabhupada, and it was so profound because I began to understand that Prabhupada, what Prabhupada had said, this mood of a young child calling out for their mother, the mood that Prabhupada had stated, this particular mood, in saying this, Prabhupada is perfectly, and I mean, it's incredible, he's perfectly demonstrating the mood of chanting as is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the third verse of Shikshashtakam. What is that mood of a young child calling out for their mother, right? It is a mood of being humble. What is that humility? Humility, I was listening to this recently. Prabhupada makes this point in one place. He said humility means to understand that no one, not your family, your friends, your partner, your work, no one can save you except Krishna. Prabhupada says to be humble means to understand that only Krishna can save you. It's a very deep statement, to be honest. It's a very, very, very deep statement. Humility means to understand that only Krishna, no one except Krishna can actually save you, right? No one but Krishna has the power to save us from death, birth, old age, disease. That's humility. And in that third verse of Shikshashtakam, that young child calling out for their mother means that they understand that there's one place where there's shelter, right? So, what is it? Trinada Pisanicha not roa pisahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya siddhahari. One should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. That means you're vulnerable. The material energy is there and she's stronger than you are. Much stronger. What is that statement? What is that statement? There's a statement made in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama Maya Duratyaya. Krishna says, this divine energy of mine consisting of the three modes of material nature is Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. And he's being generous. It's not very difficult to overcome. It's impossible to overcome. Mama Maya Duratya. So Devyesha Gunamai, Mama Maya Duratya. Mame Vaya Prapadyante, Mayam Etam Tarantite. But Mame vaya prapadyante, those who prapadyanti, those who surrender to me, Krishna says, mayam etam taranti te, they can overcome it very easily. This is our hope. Huh? So this is the mood of chanting. This is the mood of chanting that will bring someone to Nishta. And this is the mood of chanting that is consistent at the stage of Nishta. Because the third verse of Shikshashtakam relates to the stage of Nishta, according to our acharyas. Okay? So that is the mood. And this is what mood means. It is the meditation and the feeling behind the chanting. That this chanting is so important that unless I chant, unless I get the mercy and the shelter of the Lord, I've got no protection. And you will see, very interestingly, it also correlates to the principles, the 6 principles of surrender, specifically one of the 6, which is that Krishna, you accept Krishna as our only protector, which is one of the 6 principles of Sharanagati. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also elaborates on these points. Okay, so this is what it means by mood. It is the meditation, the feeling, even the intention behind my chanting. So it's the understanding behind my activity. And every activity has a mood behind it. Every activity. The one other thing I'll also add, which I think is useful for you to know, is that it's a very interesting thing I came across recently. The symptom of humility is gratitude. So when someone's actually humble, the external expression of that, they tend to feel grateful for whatever happens, good and bad. They take it all as mercy. Because, for example, if I'm humble, something good happens to me, I don't think, Krishna, it's about time. Come on, like, what kept you? Don't you know how wonderful I am? You know, what kept you so long? Because with humility, I don't think I deserve anything. So when something happens, I'm like, that's your kindness, Krishna. It's not, Bhuta Bhavana is so qualified. Bhuta Bhavana is not qualified, but yet you still gave this to me. That's so kind of you. That's humility. So when there's humility, there's gratitude. So one of the signs that we can look for within our own consciousness to see whether we're humble or not is to see, am I grateful? When good things happen, what goes on in my mind? Do I think, you know what, it's about time, you know? Yeah, you're right, you should have done that for me because I'm so great and I deserve it and I deserve this and I deserve that. Do we think that I deserve it, or do we think, you know what, that was very kind of the devotees. That was very kind of Prabhupada. That was very kind of Krishna. Do we feel that way? And when something bad happens, again, are we grateful? Do we think, you know what, it should have been a lot worse? Or do we think, Krishna, what are you doing? You know, it's me. You know, I give classes for you. I mean, is this how you're going to treat me? Right? You know, it's me. I mean, I understand if you give bad situations to those devotees because they're not good. But it's me. Right? So when something bad happens, what's our mood? Do we feel, you know what, it could have been a lot worse. Thank you, Krishna. And you're teaching me a lesson from this experience. Thank you. Or do we think, you know, Krishna, you know, you made a mistake. You should have done something bad to that person, but not me. You know, I'm a devotee. I'm one of the top. What's our mentality? So that's how we can also see if there's humility there. Am I grateful, or do I have a mood of entitlement in Krishna consciousness? Am I grateful, or do I always think that I actually deserve more? There was a statement by Radhanath Maharaj. He said that when someone has false ego, then whatever they receive, they can't appreciate, because they always feel this mood of I deserve more, right? So it leads to arrogance. Like, it's about time. But when someone has humility, whatever they experience in life, which is very powerful, listen to this point very carefully. When we're humble, whenever we receive something, it's always experienced as coming from Krishna and as being an expression of causeless mercy and love. So when there's humility, you're able to actually experience love. Because whatever happens to you, you experience it as a loving exchange because you're humble and you don't think you deserve anything. But when there's false pride, whatever comes to us, There's always dissatisfaction because we think we're so better than everything that happens to us, that we always think that whatever we're getting is a bad deal. Like, you know, I should get more than that. Why am I only getting £1,000? I deserve more than that. And our modern culture, unfortunately, poisons us to think that having a mood of entitlement is somehow very, very positive. It's not positive, right? But at the same time, we're not meant to have low self-esteem. So in the reflections on Shikshashlikam number 3 by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, there's a whole chapter on the difference between low self-esteem and humility. So, and I asked him about this also personally. When there's low self-esteem, you see more of the elements of the mode of ignorance. You become disenfused, you become lacking in determination, you become negative. Where there's humility, I simultaneously don't think I deserve anything, but because of that, whatever I receive, I become enthusiastic about it. I become grateful. I become more eager to try to do more. So the humility is in the category of goodness. So it's gratitude, appreciation, active, aware. So you're thoughtful. You acknowledge what you've been given. So awareness, acknowledgement, all the qualities of humility link with the qualities in goodness, and low self-esteem links to the quality of ignorance. So dejected, victim mentality, anger, feeling down, feeling negative emotions. So that's also how we can tell the difference. Am I feeling humble, or do I feel that I've got low self-esteem? If I feel, oh, you know, nothing goes right for me, you know, none of the devotees are nice to me, you know, Krishna's given a lot to that devotee, but he never looks after me. That's low self-esteem. But if I'm in the mood of humility, then I don't think I deserve anything. So whatever I receive, it's always seen from the perspective, this is above what I deserve. And even so-called challenging experiences, this is Krishna's mercy because I'm burning off my karma. This is Krishna's mercy because I'm learning some very important lessons which will make me even more spiritual and more successful later on. So my spiritual master gave a very beautiful analogy. He said in a business, if you're the head of a company and you have an employee who's really good, a top employee in the company, what do? You don't give him less or her less. You give him or her more because you see that they're more qualified. So sometimes what's happening in our spiritual life is we're sometimes getting more challenges because Krishna sees you're more qualified. So we can arrange for you to quickly burn off all these obstacles, these challenges from so many lifetimes to quickly accelerate. It's not a sign that he doesn't like you. It's actually a sign that he sees you and recognizes you're very sincere. This Prabhu or this Mataji, they're very serious. So let's quickly burn off all that karma. Let's quickly, they're not gonna become flaky and walk away. They're serious. So let's give them an opportunity to quickly remove all these obstacles so they can quickly come to much higher states of spiritual consciousness. So we have to see beyond the superficial. Behind those seemingly difficult times, there's a tremendous blessing if we can remain loyal and faithful in the process. And that also comes by continuing forward in good association where we are revealing our mind and getting all of that help that we need to come closer to Krishna. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Okay.
Krishna Prabhu, do
yes.
we have still time for questions?
I think we have time for one last question, and then I'll have to go.
Okay, so I will read one question for you in the chat box. So we have a question from Mahatma Prabhu. Sorry, yeah. Hare Krishna, can you please guide us if there is a specific book to read on how to chant the holy name?
Okay, I mean there are many. There are many very, very good books. I was looking at we were doing some seminars a while ago on the living name by Satyananda Maharaj, which is very, very beautiful. He's also written the Nectarian Ocean of the Holy Name, which is incredible. Nam Rahasya, which is very good. There's a book by Burjan Prabhu called Japa. That is very, very good. If you want to get very kind of, if you want to get into a lot of the detail, Shiv Ram Maharaj has written Navavraja Mahima, which is a multi-volume set of books. And I think it's the 7th or the 8th book, which is all about the holy name. So that's there. And there are so many. There's also Srila Prabhupada's Namamrita, which is a compilation of different statements by Prabhupada on the holy name as well. And then, of course, there are many seminars throughout the movement which have been recorded, which you can find on ISKCON Leaders, ISKCON Desire Tree, about chanting. Yes, okay, I'll take this was you've requested.
Thank
okay.
you.
You have a question, Naimishan Mataji?
No, it's from the chat box for
okay.
Please.
Okay. Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is from Bhakta Rakshat Madhav Das. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, due to duty, I'm not able to chant at home, and I can manage only 6 to 8 rounds. The balance run I do while driving and traveling in the car. Is it okay? Please suggest. Thank you.
It's hard to answer without knowing the specifics of your circumstances. Generally, the general rule is it's not good to chant when you're driving, because also it can lead to inattentiveness and it could also be the cause of an accident, right? So generally the rule is that you should not, well, no, the rule is, not generally, the rule is you should not chant when you're driving. It's just, it's dangerous to do that. Obviously, if you can chant in any other instance when you're not driving, then that's fine. So I don't know the specifics of your circumstance. That's it requires more of a one-to-one conversation for that. But what I'd say is do the best you can. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, in situations where you are not driving and you have time, then that would be a good situation to chant the other rounds. So that's the answer. But you shouldn't chant when you're driving. You leave yourself open to like like an accident, and then it could be very detrimental for you. It could be detrimental for the other people, because if you crash, it could also have other victims as well. So just being very honest, that you should not chant when you're driving. When you're driving, you should just drive.